Hello world, Shelly here, and it is time not only for Foundation Fest, but Foundation MegaFest! We are going to do 15 days in a row of foundation reviews. For those of you that have been following me for a while, I do Foundation Fest every so often, where I do 5 days in a row of foundation reviews. Every Friday is your Friday Foundation Fix, where you can get your fix of foundation reviews in between Foundation Fests. And now I'm going to do a Foundation MegaFest, 15 days in a row of foundation reviews. And if this seems familiar because you follow ThaTaylaa and you know of her 15 days of foundation, if you've ever checked the info box of my foundation reviews, I link to ThaTaylaa in every single one of my reviews, crediting her as the inspiration for my foundation review love and interest and everything else. She is the queen of foundation reviews. If you do not follow her or have not seen her channel, go check her out, although everybody knows ThaTaylaa, especially if you are into foundation. So check her out. She is the source of my inspiration, and the only difference, I got a 40-plus-year-old face here, and hers is much younger and more beautiful than mine. So I'm gonna kick this off. I have a special little accessory today. This is a Foundation Fest mug. It's got my Geek Out of Water logo on the back. If you guys are interested in checking these out, you can pick one up yourself. I have a Teespring shop. 10% of the proceeds will go to one of the animal care charities that I support. The rest goes to purchasing all of this makeup. I make about enough money on YouTube to pay for 10% of my annual expenses for this channel. So any other money will go straight to funding the purchase of makeup, and Geek Out of Water is a registered LLC business, so you can also get a t-shirt. So cool. I'm so stoked. Check that out. I will link it down below. Cheers. All this brouhaha, and I haven't even mentioned what foundation we're going to check out first. So I picked up this foundation in the Sephora VIB sale, and I asked you guys on a previous video which ones you would like to see first of the foundations I picked up, and I did not realize there was such a fan club for KEVYN AUCOIN. Now, every time I sit down to do one of these videos, I Google, is such and such brand cruelty-free? And as I was Googling, this is KEVYN AUCOIN, and you know how Google autocompletes and it's like, is KEVYN AUCOIN still alive? And I'm like, oh gosh. In fact, he's not. I did not realize that his cause of death, though, was kidney and liver failure due to acetaminophen toxicity. That's the stuff in Tylenol. So holy cow. Died in 2002, so he's been gone for a while. If you're not familiar with KEVYN AUCOIN, he was a makeup artist, a photographer, American photographer, makeup artist, author. His makeup books are fantastic. I have a couple of them linked in my Geek Out of Water Amazon shop because they are my coffee table books. So holy cow, this intro has been like sick long. So we're gonna check out the Etherealist from KEVYN AUCOIN. You get 0.95 fluid ounces, so just under the typical 1 fluid ounce, for $58, and it comes in a pump. And can you guys tell this beautiful gradient oh, beautiful. I love beautiful things. I think the bottle's plastic, but it's friggin' pretty. This comes in 16 different shades. I've got the lightest one, which is Light EF01 Light with subtle pink undertones. It's currently getting 4 out of 5 stars with 83 reviews on Sephora's website. This is described as medium coverage for all skin types. They specifically say normal, dry, combo, oily, and it's a natural finish, a moisture-packed, lightweight foundation that creates a luminous, airbrushed appearance. The Etherealist Skin Illuminating Foundation blends effortlessly for shine-free, comfortable wear. Hyaluronic acid boosts hydration and maintains skin's moisture, creating a cushiony feel. It features light diffusing particles and high-definition pigments that work synergistically to perfect skin's appearance. The silky smooth formula delivers a medium coverage with natural semi-satin finish, perfect for all skin types, no parabens, no sulfates, no phthalates. And yes, it is cruelty-free. KEVYN AUCOIN Cosmetics, they do not test on animals. They do not have anybody test ingredients on animals on their behalf. They do not sell in China, which requires animal testing. So yes, KEVYN AUCOIN is cruelty-free. With all that said, let us swatch this against some of my other high-end foundations in my collection. Alrighty, let's swatch. First up is today's foundation, the KEVYN AUCOIN Etherealist foundation. This is in the shade EF01 Light. Next is the Estee Lauder Double Wear Stay in Place in shade 1C1 Cool Bone. About the same tone, but a little bit darker and a little bit more peachy pink. Third up is the MAC Studio Fix Fluid in shade NW10, a pretty close match to the KEVYN AUCOIN. Fourth is the Kat Von D Lock-It Foundation in shade Light 44 Cool, which is just a little more pink undertone. And last, I've got the Josie Maran Vibrancy Foundation in shade RG10 Supernatural, which is about the same shade lightness to darkness, but is slightly more warm undertone. I am starting out with a 43-year-old face. I've got some sun damage, sunspots, texture on this side of my face in particular that I like to cover up. I've got some larger pores around the sides of my nose, my cheeks here, especially like right where my smile happens. Got some pores up in the center of my T-zone, got some texture between my eyebrows, got some fine lines going on. So the things that a typical 40-something is dealing with, these are things that I would like to minimize, cover up, hide, etc. I don't want to look older with foundation on. I want to look younger with foundation on. And I have already cleansed, moisturized, sunscreened this mug. I'm going to go in on one half of my face with a sponge. Now I just want to show you, I just picked these up. These are from Sony Kashuk. I've seen them a few times. They're carried at Target. People on the YouTubes are talking about them. And look how big this thing is. Holy tamale. Do I have a regular sponge here to compare it to? I don't. So here's the size of it dry. Here's the size of it dampened. And you know what's cool? Okay, here's my first thought. The flat part, you know, what you would use to pounce on your face, it's also flat so you can set it on your table and it won't like roll around. Maybe the cats won't catch so many of my sponges because it'll stay in place. I don't know, we'll see. So I will use a sponge on one half of my face. I will use a brush on the other. This is the e.l.f. Ultimate Blending Brush. We'll see if there's better coverage or a preference for the finish of one over the other. I have already primed with my Strivectin Line Blur Vector Magical Miracle Beautiful stuff. And let's see how this goes. I'm super stoked. My skin is pretty normal this time of year, but it tends toward being dry. And this is supposedly a nice hydrating foundation, and I've not found a good hydrating foundation in a minute. So let's see and hope and keep our fingers crossed. The sponge is so big you can like pounce out your entire face in 2.5 seconds flat. Holy cow. Pretty light coverage to start out with. It's very, very smooth looking. I like that. Let's check the brush side. I think this finish looks really pretty either way, so if you have a preference sponge or brush, go with whatever you like best. With the brush, I would recommend a stippling motion as opposed to a buffing, because it does seem to move around the product a little bit too much if you buff it. But with a stippling motion, it is pretty as heck. Maybe a little bit slightly better coverage, but about equal. Now, I did use all of that product. They said this is buildable to medium coverage, so let's give it one more pump and see if we can get at least a little more of my sunspots covered up. This is really pretty. I do think that their description of it being a satin natural finish is quite quite accurate. It is nicely smoothing texture. I don't feel like it is cakey anywhere. It is slightly blurring my pores, not super blurred, but slightly blurred. I think the shade match is just a smidge too light for me. It looks a little bit lighter on camera because my neck is in shadow, but it's not too far off, and I bet in natural light it will look fine. I'm not having any caking or any settling into lines at this point. We will see if it settles at all once I start putting my makeup on, but overall I think this is a very nice finish. It is a little bit finicky when you apply it because if you do any kind of buffing motion, it wants to move around. So until it sets down in place, I would avoid rubbing, buffing. Go with stippling, tapping, pressing. It is still a little bit tacky, so I think I am going to have to set it unless it sets all the way down by the time I sit down to put the rest of my face on. But let's check the time. It is currently 3:55 p.m. We are getting a little bit of a late start today, but I will go put the rest of my face on and we'll be right back. Okay, so where are we at? I had a tiny bit of trouble blending concealer into the foundation because the foundation just kind of wants to move around with any kind of brushing, buffing motion. I was using a brush to apply my concealer and it was kind of caking up at the join where they overlap. That did sort of melt away a bit and it's not really noticeable now, but it was pretty finicky and I did have to mess with it a bit to get everything smoothed out. It also did settle teeny tiny bit into my smile lines. Those are not my smile lines. My smile lines and my forehead lines. It didn't really want to tap out too much, and then because it wanted to move around, the more I tried to tap it out, the more I was moving the product around. So I kind of just let it go. I, moved a little bit of product around here and tried to touch it up with a little powder, but so that's kind of, it's a little bit iffy in terms of that. Everything else is staying put. I did end up setting it lightly with the Charlotte Tilbury Flawless Airbrush Flawless Finish. And I love this stuff as setting powder. It's freaking beautiful. Otherwise, I think the color match is nice. I think the finish is beautiful. I had no trouble blending powder products on top of the foundation, so it's totally fine with powder. Doesn't really seem to like cream on top of it. So that's where we are starting out. On the rest of my face, I've got the Benefit Dallas Blush Bronzer, and I used this for the first time with the Milani Powder Bronzer brush, and I really like this brush. It's bigger than most of the brushes I typically use for bronzer because I tend to do like a bronze tour kind of thing, like where I concentrate the color into my contour area, but I used this brush instead and got a more blurred effect. It was very easy to apply. Thumbs up on this Milani brush. On my blush, it is the Laura Geller Balance and Brighten. No, it's not. It's the Blush and Brighten. This is in the shade Peach Delight. My highlight is the Hourglass Ambient Incandescent Strobe Light. Love this stuff. I started out thinking I was going to go for a nice natural kind of look today. And then this happened. Really what happened was I went to cray with my brows. Kat Von D, this is the new Brow Dimension Powder, Brow Struck I think it's called, and it's in the shade Walnut, and I really like this stuff. It's a little bit warmer toned than I would typically go for, but it's an interesting tone to it, and actually in the sunlight, the plum in my hair actually looks really good with the brows, so I've been digging this, and the packaging's gorgeous, of course, because it's Kat Von D. And my eyes are a Hush palette. This is the Retro Love palette from Bad Habit Beauty. This is a dupe for the Anastasia Beverly Hills Subculture palette. And the whole time I was applying my eyes, I just kept thinking, this is what Subculture was supposed to be. Everything blended smoothly, had no trouble with fallout, no trouble with pigmentation. Everything looked beautiful in this palette, so yeah. My lip is from Smashbox. It's their Always On Liquid Lip in Stepping Out, and I topped that with a teeny bit of Buxom White Russian. That's where we're beginning. I'll be back in a couple hours with a daylight check-in, and I'll come back at the end of the night with my final thoughts. Hey guys, daylight check-in here. It's just after 6 p.m. so it's been about 2 hours and you can see the color match is pretty good, maybe a smidge, tiny bit too light for me. It's also a pretty significantly pink undertone. It's a cool undertone, which is fine. That is my personal preference. I'm neutral leaning cool most of the time and I prefer a cool undertone, but do note that the shade number 1 is definitely pink undertone. I think everything's holding up just fine. I don't see any issues. It hasn't been very long, but everything's looking good so far. And there's your color match. So I will be back tonight with a final check-in. Hey, 11:01 p.m. That means we are just past the 7-hour mark. I know it's a little bit of a short wear test for the day, but I had to get a late start and I have to go to bed early because I have to get up early. And yeah, so let's take a look at where we're at with the KEVYN AUCOIN Etherealist foundation. This is one of those foundations that I feel like once it sort of melted into my skin and warmed up to my face, I like it even more. I thought it was a pretty finish to begin with. Totally lightweight, very lightweight, very comfortable. I think it is not drying, so if you've got dry skin, I think this is a nice non-drying formula. I don't know if I'd go so far as to say it's hydrating. I don't feel like I'm any more hydrated than I was this morning, but this afternoon, I suppose. But I do feel like I don't have tightness going on, and notice you really can't see my crow's feet. One of the ways I know I'm dehydrated at the end of the night is if my crow's feet are showing up even if I'm not scrunching my face or smiling or whatever. And I really can't see them, so everything is a-okay in the hydration department with this foundation. The appearance over time I think is good. It is starting to wear off just a little bit around my chin, just a little bit around my nose. I feel like my blush bronzer highlight is still intact, so it is wearing fairly well over time. In between my eyebrows, the area of texture that I've got there does look a little bit heavy. I'm having a little bit of separation along the movement lines there, but really not any separation elsewhere, so it's really not too bad, and I may have just had a little too much product there. It is entirely possible. The settling into lines did not get any worse. My forehead lines look fine, so once I set the foundation, it pretty much stopped that from happening. Overall, I think this is really comfortable. It's nice for dry skin. It's pretty okay for maturing skin in terms of settling into lines. It only settles a teeny tiny bit. So if I had to give a grade to the KEVYN AUCOIN Etherealist foundation, I'm gonna go solid B+. If it had more shades, I would be more willing to put it up into the A range. If it was a little less finicky, I would be more willing to put it up into the A range. Remember the trouble I had getting cream products and concealer to work with it, and I do feel like it moves around just a little bit, like this spot on my mouth that's missing. I think I caught myself with my napkin when I was having dinner, so it's a little bit finicky, very pretty. All right for dry skin and probably all right for maturing skin. So we're gonna go B+ on the KEVYN AUCOIN Etherealist. There you have it. My thoughts on this one. If you like foundation reviews, if you enjoyed this one, if you'd like to see more of them, give me a thumbs up down below. Please subscribe if you haven't already. I upload new videos every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 9 p.m. Eastern. But of course, while we've got the Foundation MegaFest going on, it's every single day, 9 p.m. Eastern, for 15 days straight. We have wrapped up day 1. At the end of the Foundation MegaFest, I will add all of these new reviews to my foundation spreadsheet. If you go to geekoutofwater.com, click the Foundation Fest link, I have a ranked, sortable, searchable spreadsheet of all of my foundation reviews. There are more than 80 reviews up there at this point, but to avoid spoilers, I'm going to wait until the MegaFest is over. Then I will add these foundations to the spreadsheet. But if you've never seen the spreadsheet, go check it out. Lots of stuff to search. Be sure to swipe as you're looking at the table because it doesn't all fit into the single view. Lots of info there, so check that out. As always, thanks a lot for taking some time out of your day to geek out over makeup with me. I appreciate it, and I hope you guys all have an awesome day or night wherever you are in the world. Take care of each other. Bye-bye.